Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Ebony from Sturdy Studios. This is like a dope situation where I've literally never been before. I put myself in a situation, but I'll explain that later in another video. Make sure you just stay tuned to all the content that I have being posted this year. I'm really stepping my game up along with everyone else around me. Definitely step your game up. But here, I have Chin. He's totally amazing. He's the freaking boss, running this stuff. Really, I don't know the exact titles and stuff, but I've been here for a few hours, and I've seen him really being a leader and just really getting the squad together and making sure everything's solid. So yeah, we're just gonna squeeze him out and just get some juice from him and see what
I love you.
Really we gotta help one another. So it's just this is amazing. I even had to stop and just be yo, let's just save this for the podcast, because I was just asking questions. That's what you have to do, just ask questions, get in the habit of that. So yeah, enough of me talking. We have Chin here. Yeah.
So,
for those that don't know you.
Yeah, no, I'm COO of Digitalism. On the board is Jordan Nazario, sitting right there. CSO, I have Kendall Shaw, who's our CAO. We have 3 department heads. Anthony Rilling, he's CXO, Chief Experience Officer, for those who don't know what that is. Piero Madu is CCO, he's Chief Content Officer. And then we have John, who's upstairs, President of Sales, and he's kind of in charge of client acquisition and things like that. I basically started Digitalism last April. It turned into a company that I really kind of didn't connect to for a while, and I kind of lost myself after the first few months. I ended up kind of going down the B2B route, and I wasn't really connecting with people like Jordan and Kendall, which is what I really wanted to do. So October came, and I basically had about 5 employees. Good client list at the beginning. It wasn't bad. We were still a little negative. But I basically kind of shut it down, and I got really frustrated one day, and I said, you know what, this is not what I want to do. I'm turning into a company that I personally didn't see myself enjoying doing for the last few months. And Kendall had already been coming down for school, so I contacted him on Instagram, and I told him, hey, let's meet up. He came by the office, and it was just kind of we hit it off, and immediately I wanted to kind of know more about e-commerce, and I think he wanted to know more about how to run a business and actually how to manage what he was doing, because he had Maverick at the time. And I think for him being 18, I could see a lot of the mistakes that I already did. Mm-hmm. And I immediately kind of wanted to prevent him from making the same mistakes. And I think in the process, we learned a lot about each other and what we do. And I think that that's what caused us to say, you know what, let's do something together. And that's just how we started Digitalism. And then Jordan, I had reached out to him earlier in the year, back in July, and he had Clever at the time. He was actually doing a lot of stuff at the time. He had just been featured in Entrepreneur magazine, and I was surprised that he took my call, to be honest, because I didn't really know him. He didn't know me. Mm-hmm. And that was the last time we talked before Kendall reached out to him, when me and Kendall were doing our thing. And he actually came down here not even knowing he was actually going to stay. So he only had a couple pieces of clothes and stuff like that. He was sleeping on my couch. He was sleeping on Kendall's dorm. And that was just how we incepted Digitalism, those first few weeks of just knowing each other. And things moved quick. We had a lot of goals. We had a goal to get a house. We had a goal to move in with each other. We had a goal to start creating something that a lot of people weren't creating and weren't trying to show everyone in our space, because everyone in our space thinks that, the click of a button, they're a millionaire, or, if they buy this person's course, they're going to learn X, Y, and Z. And, if they do this and they do this, yes, they'll be successful like this person that they're looking up to. But what they don't realize is the person's not really giving them the whole story.
Right.
And the hard work and the actual time it takes to put in the work to be able to afford to say, a click of a button is $1 million, and not just see $1 million on a phone screen on a Shopify store and instantly believe it. Right. When there's a bunch of stuff behind that number that no one's showing them. So, every day at Digitalism, I think even you having here would show people that this is real, that it is something that anyone of any age group in any stage of life, whether it's in our industry or whatever, just out in the real world, that they can kind of foresee what it is to have a platform and how much hard work it takes to have to build this platform. So that's been the last year.
Wow.
In a nutshell.
Wow. That's crazy. I think it's like even crazier how all of this happens from social media. Like, I tell my parents and my family, like, yo, I met these guys and I'm going to their house. It's 6 of them. Well, I really only said 3, but now it's 6. But like, I'm like, and they're like, what? You met? So you don't know them? And it's like social media. Like,
yeah.
It's like, did you know that you could possibly do this when you first started seeing these apps pop up on the iPhone, like, or even Android?
So I didn't actually have an iPhone till I think my senior year of high school, which was like 5 years ago, and it was actually the iPhone 5S. And before that, I was all Android, and I still use social media just as much as I do today. But back then, it's funny how. And maybe this is something different with other generations, but back then when Instagram had first came out, it wasn't looked at the way it is today. So I still remember how it is to use it personally. And even then, that still connects to how we use it today, but in a very different way. There's a lot more features. There's a lot more ways to get personal with people. There's a lot more anecdotes and different techniques to get what you want on social media now. Right. And it's just one of those things that it's transformed so much that to even think back of when an app came out, or to even think back when we were using something as simple as 5 buttons on Instagram on the bottom, and each button wasn't comprised of 5 more buttons. Each button was just its own button.
Exactly.
I don't think anyone knew that we would be where we are today. And for anyone says that they do, they're lying. They honestly are lying. It's just evolution. I think that the people like us that are trying to get ahead of the curve and are seeing the value in content and are seeing the value in all the things that most people take light of in their head when they use these platforms, shows that we're in a different mindset when it comes to something that's free every day. We're not just sitting back and living the 9 to 5 and settling for what's on the surface, but we're willing to kind of dive more. So going back to the question of, did you think apps would turn into what it is today? No. And I still don't even know what it's going to become, to be honest. It's crazy. Right. It's interesting.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to ask, do you, like, 2020, if one social media platform was eliminated, what do you think it would be?
Twitter.
Right.
I used to use Twitter a lot back in high school. I used it a lot at the beginning of college. I actually had a huge following like I did on Instagram, and it kind of simultaneously happened around the time I hit like 11K on Instagram. I had just hit 9K on Twitter, so I felt like both platforms at the time, maybe I was using them in a way that people connected me on both, but I realized that like probably after my sophomore year of college, it just died. I remember they came out with their what's it called for cryptocurrency? It's IPO on the stock market, and I remember it came out at $17 and then it just dropped to 14, and then came back up and then just dropped again, and then after that they just never recovered. And it showed that even you can pour millions of more dollars into these platforms and they still won't change.
Right.
There's still nothing different about it compared to the powerhouse of Facebook. Right, like what Mark Zuckerberg built was a basis for what everything else is today, and anything that comes after is a copycat, no matter how you put it. Whether we're sharing photos, whether we're sharing videos, virtual reality, discs, or whatever the case may be that people can interact with us, that's where all this stemmed from. So everything after was kind of a hiccup, and Snapchat's included in that. Snapchat's idea was, let's put a timer on a picture and send it. And they never evolutionized that. They turned it into stories. They turned it into kind of news channels being able to do it to us. And like Facebook was always the dominator. It's what started the trend of the basis of social media, the interaction, the like, the comment, and everyone else is a copycat. Out of all of them though, definitely Twitter. I think Twitter's too fast. I think it's too fast for its own good. It's too much information. People get tired of too much information at once. Some people love it. Some people hate it. So.
Chin told me before the podcast that he'd probably tell me some answers that I didn't here before. I think that was
one of the answers.
Yeah. So when it comes to like Jordan and Kendall, when you like DM'd them, were they in like the same state or anything like that?
No, Jordan was actually in New York. Kendall was just coming to UTampa, which was my alma mater. I graduated back in May, so immediately we kind of had that in common. It's kind of it's very rare if you kind of meet someone you connect with at my school. It's a very diverse school. We got a lot of people from out of the country, all over the state, all over the country. And then Jordan was in New York, and I had literally only talked to Jordan twice before he came here. And it was the weirdest thing when he came, because I feel like he didn't come for me. I felt like he came for Kendall, because he didn't know who I was. And I don't know. I think we just all hit it off very well. I think we realized that Jordan brings one thing, Kendall brings one thing, and I bring one thing. And I think when we realize that, when you put your ego aside and you actually look at what someone can do, when you realize that it's a big part of what you're missing, I think the ego's putting aside is the biggest step in someone's life that you can do. Because it's like they were willing to take, Jordan was willing to take the brand that he had cultivated and got into Entrepreneur Magazine with, to put it aside and say, you know what, I'm going to pour it into a bigger purpose. I'm going to pour it into a bigger meaning, and I'm going to do it because I'm not only Jordan Nazario, the next level closer, featuring entrepreneur. I can be Jordan Nazario, the corporation leader, the chief of sales, and I can guide a team of 40, and I'm able to do it at the age of 22, 23, whenever that comes in the next couple years. And I think for Kendall, it was more or less, he was coming to school, and I know I had pulled him from a situation of not wanting to go to school. No 18-year-old wants to go to school. I know I didn't want to go, but I always saw that Kendall was greater than school. Like he really had his sights set on a bigger goal when it came to e-commerce, and he was really picky about certain things in e-commerce, and it was things that I had never kind of heard about from other people. So I instantly realized that he wasn't helping people to help them, but he was helping people to not only get them better, but make himself better. And he's constantly always referring back to people's testimonials, and he's constantly always asking people for their testimonials, because he always says that it makes him a better person. And I think that that's what we do on a daily basis that no one else does. And it's so weird. Like, well, everyone's kind of interconnected in this space, no matter what they say that they're not. Everyone kind of talks, and it's funny how you find it out. But a lot of people that are our competition, quote unquote, they have no idea what we do here. And we have like 11 dislikes on our YouTube video. And we have like 14 likes, and we're all looking at each other, and we're like, why do we have 11 dislikes? We didn't do anything wrong, you know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
But not everyone's gonna like what you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
Not everyone's gonna get it all the time. And there's been so many instances in the fact that we've been together where we've realized that it's kind of becoming a little comical. So the fact that we did come from different places, I think, feeds into that exclusivity factor of no one knows what actually happens in this house. So it was interesting how we came together.
It's like those are those things that come with what you want, like the dream. You know? Like, what are some other sacrifices that you have to make to continue this CEO position?
Every day. Every day is a sacrifice. You sacrifice something every day. Whether it's an hour of sleep, whether it's maybe you didn't eat during lunch, or you maybe didn't get what you wanted done that day. There's always a sacrifice. I tell everyone, if you're not sacrificing something, you're not working for something. Like, you have to come over the hump of the excuse. You have to come over the hump of, I don't have any more time left in the day, or I don't have enough time left in the day, or every excuse you hear every single person say, it's always kind of parallel with laziness. And it's always parallel with something that really isn't relevant. And people will ride that, and they'll lie to them. Eventually they'll lie to themselves. And whenever people ask us, they're like, how do you guys manage your day? Or how do you get up at 5 o'clock? You just do it. Right. There's no like secret formula behind it. There's no like magical spell that it makes you get up at 5. You just do it. And when me, Jordan, and Kendall started, we weren't waking up at 5. We were doing what we were doing, making the sales, trying to get this house, waking up at 6, 7, right? they were, at the time, I was still waking up at like 4, because that was just my schedule way before I met them. And they didn't learn it right away. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's just slow progression. I don't just because I tell you I wake up at 4 doesn't mean I expect you to go from waking up at 6 to saying, oh, you know what, Chin said, wake up at 4. Magically, you're going to wake up at 4. No, you're not going to wake up. You're going to sleep in probably till 5:30. But slow progression is still progression. So what it is that you have to give up every day, it's a wide variety of things. But there's a lesson for each one. And if you can provide a lesson for each one, it doesn't. You'll start to ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm not giving up to get that step farther? And the mindset switches. You go from asking, what do I have to do, to what didn't I do today? And once you get there, everything else follows, because you're thinking differently. And it's pretty cool. And ask them. They get up at 4 o'clock sometimes before me. So, it is.
Dope. So when did you decide to shift your life from like just free living to I'm on a schedule? Like besides like, your school A day, B day, like on your own.
It was after my sophomore year, leading into my junior year. It was after first semester, so probably January 2017. Before then, I wasn't a knucklehead, right? But I was in college, so I was wasting a lot of time. Like everyone does in college, we all waste time. We all go to the parties, we all go out, we talk, we go to school. It's a routine. Yeah. I think I started looking at it differently in that January, and I forgot what had triggered this, but I had actually started the clothing line that's sitting right over there in boxes, and I had this random I have to do this. I want to create clothing. I called this random manufacturer in Singapore, didn't do any comparisons for pricing, didn't know what I was doing, thought I knew the world, wasted probably 10 grand over the next 8 months. And as you can see, it didn't work, right? It's 10 grand still sitting there that I never got back. And I think the biggest thing it taught me was not every good idea is a great idea. And before that, before I really realized that was the reality of my living, I thought every idea of mine was great. I honestly thought that every idea I had was great. It took me to waste that much money and waste that much time to realize, well, shit, not every idea that I do is great. I think that's when it finally settled in that I needed the structure. I needed to really start thinking logically about what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, and how it affects me and others around me. And as stupid as it is to say that I realized that in college, I know people that don't realize that until they're 30. So that's truly when I realized it. And at the time, I was actually working for Cody Kearns at I Come Up Marketing. He was doing Instagram growth. I don't use quotes because I'm being sarcastic. It's called boosting now. Everyone calls it Instagram growth, though, but it's boosting. Follow, unfollow, everyone knows what it is. And I don't want to say that working for him contributed to that, because I realize how much you make as a business owner. I'm not going to say that he was a bad business owner, but I didn't agree with the structure of what he did to everyone that was working for him. That's another story. But I think leaving there, I think I was a better person to look again and pay attention logically to how is it that, me in that situation, it was affecting not only me, but everyone around me. Mm-hmm. And then I realized I don't want to be that type of owner. Right. So I think in that year, I started realizing I need to think differently. I think that's when my mindset switched to I'm a smart college kid to I need to be a smarter college kid and start really thinking logically about what I need to do with my life. Because at the time, I really didn't have a plan.
Right.
So.
How did you realize that you were here to really serve a purpose and to help others? When was it you stopped being, I don't know if you were always like that, or if once you were selfish? Was it
I think we're all selfish. I think we're all selfish for good reasons, though. I don't know. I'll tell you this. I've never really switched my values. right? I think a lot of people confuse that over time. I think certain situations cause us to think differently. And I'm not going to say that I don't think differently from today, from 4 years ago. I want to say that the foundation has usually stood consistent. Like, I've never found myself screwing someone over, or I've never found myself, stealing from someone. Those values, I think, have never changed in me. I don't know if I can remember a time, though, where I became a better person for a specific reason. I think over time you build that. I think some people are taught that. I think some people are born to be that. It's all nature versus nurture. But I can't really think of a time that probably made me feel like I was a better person. I guess we all try to be a better person. I guess some people succeed more than others. Like, I think other people are way better than I am. Like, I sometimes cry because other people are better than I am. Like, you see other people are just, they're more caring, right? And we all have a sense of caring, but some of us care more than others. Sometimes I think, you see that in other people and you wish that could be you, and maybe you're that to other people, but you just don't see it. I think I'm one of those people. I still don't think I'm a very caring individual, but a lot of people tell me I am. But I think you have to kind of see that maybe over time. Maybe you'll learn to see that. But I think we all try to become better caring people. I think it's just some of us are better reading it than others.
Interesting. I like that. So as far as content goes, honestly, I like talking about New Year's, but it's like, I don't like to put too much attention on it, so I don't want to necessarily...
So like the New Year, 2019?
Yeah, like, it's just like...
New Year, new me.
Goes for the next... New Year goes for the next quarter, like, forget the year. But whatever, we celebrate it. But I'm like, for the next... We can say year.
Okay.
Like, for the upcoming year, like, what can we expect, like, as far as content on your page?
I try so hard. I literally think about this all the time. I always say I wish I had someone to follow me around, because I do so much like behind the scenes work, and I'm not always kind of in front of the camera like Kendall and Jordan can be, and the way that they should be, because I'm not used to it. And that's honestly how they started their brand. My brand started because of my lifestyle. Like, I never posted anything about what I did for businesses, who I worked with, clients I've had, things about this space out loud. It was just, I was connected with a lot of people, and I learned it as I went, and I did a lot of research, and I did the time, and I failed, and I succeeded, and I failed, and I succeeded, and that's how I kind of learned. But when it comes to content, I have no idea. I have Piero kind of helping me with that. He's like, let's do the life of Chin. Let's, record your everyday life. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, my life is boring. Because as exciting as it looks online, it's boring. All I do is work. And even when I'm like on those, even when I'm on like a yacht, or I'm going out to a restaurant and I take a picture, or maybe I'm traveling and I take a picture, and I barely travel, which is hilarious. But when I'm in all those situations, my life is still boring. I'm still working. Like, I always work. You know what I mean? Like, ask them. Like, I'm going to New York tomorrow.
Yeah.
I leave at... P's taking me to the airport at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be working as soon as I land. Like, I'm going to be on the plane for 2 hours. I'm probably going to have some drinks, but I'm going to be working when I land, because I got like 3 meetings as soon as I land. I got to go get his jacket from eConvention that we left behind. I'm still working. So it's nice to love what you do, because I think someone would be miserable if they were in my position where they had to work all the time. But I love what I do. I love it. I wouldn't not want to be doing anything else, right, to be honest. But content wise, I think you guys are just going to see more of what I do on a daily basis. Maybe it's not boring to other people. To me, it gets boring.
I've seen the first video, guys. It's not boring.
It's definitely not boring completely, but a lot of me is boring. At least I think so.
I definitely appreciate this conversation, yo. Like,
yeah.
And just being able to watch you guys is dope. So you guys are in for a treat. Just seeing what I've seen, like actually being here. The cameras got to catch up, but with the edits, if you know what I mean. You know, the eyes see before the camera gets to edit out. That's what I'm saying. But before we wrap it up, if this is like someone's first video that they're watching, like they didn't even know about entrepreneurship, or they didn't even know about half the things you said in the video, but they know they want to get started. They know they don't want to keep going to their job.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I'm trying not to say something cliche. Trying not to say something everyone says, right? I think you know what? Let me change this question. Let me say 3 things that I find as problems as to where I see people start. Okay, the biggest thing I see when people start is they don't stick to it long enough. I think you need to remain consistent. Success is not built overnight. I've met people that, prime example, Piero, right? He's been editing videos for literally less than a year. Yet he's better than most people that have probably edited videos for 10 years and went to college for it. Right? But he stuck long enough to do it, and I think because he loved what he did, I think that meshed perfectly because he loved what he did and put the time in to do it. Right? The second thing I see is people want to do too much. I got people that literally call us and they'll talk to John, and they'll say, oh, well, I want to do SMMA, but I'm also doing e-commerce, and by the way, I also do content on the side. I mean, it's crazy. It's like people are doing like 4 things, right? And they're making money here, making money here, making money here, making money here. Great, right? We had someone call us like a few weeks ago making $8K, but the kid's doing like 4 things. He's got 2 dropship stores. He's got a SMMA with a couple clients under it. He's got a white label agency for technology that he's doing with a couple clients. And on top of that, he's doing social media management manually. I'm like, how do you find the time to do all this? And he's like, oh, but I hate this and this. But he's only doing it because it's making him money, right? So imagine if he took that and that, X'd it out, and then put the time into the other 2, he'd probably be making 3 times more money, right? So not sticking to it long enough, doing too many things at once, and I think the third would be unique, and don't be afraid to be unique, because I think this space is getting saturated with a lot of the same stuff. I think we've had enough courses, I think we've had enough webinars, and I think we've had enough of this and that. And yeah, we're doing the same thing here, but we're trying to kind of flip it on its head with reality. You know, Kendall's cheat sheet, we had someone email us and say, well, this is still a course, and you guys are just changing the name of it, and this and that. And I was saying to myself, I'm like, well, yeah, that's all we did. You know, we can't make our own course platform to show a course. You know what I mean? Like Thinkific and all these softwares that people use for courses. I can't go in there and change it and say, well, you can't call this a course because we're a different company, right? So what we did was we changed the name. We called it a cheat sheet. And it's because Kendall literally tells you word for word what to do. He's not fluffing it with, well, this is what a Shopify store is at a basic store level, and this is what you need to do, and blah, 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 blah. Right? He literally tells you, these are the 10 apps I use to generate $80,000, right? And this is what each app means, and this is what it'll do for your business. There's no fluff. Right. There's no like gray area where the person's sitting on there and they have to watch the slide 3 times because they're like, did I miss it? Like, did I miss the golden nugget or something? Exactly. And meanwhile, I think every slide he has is a golden nugget, where it's like he honestly tells you all these things that he taught me when I first met him. He has it in like the first 5 slides. And then on top of that, you know, something that we're doing differently that no one else is really doing is Jordan's getting in on it. I'm getting in on it. So it's not only Kendall's course. Now it's almost like an actual cheat sheet. Like now you're actually cheating off of everyone in the class. All right. So now you got Jordan's motivational, you know, speeches when it comes to the mindset, and then I'm going to be featured on it with branding, and then we're looking to get the rest of the team on it, Piero for content, bring John in for some more mindset stuff, and bring Anthony in for how to design a Shopify store the right way and branding and things like that. So we're not just a one-man team. And I think there's so many one-man teams out there. I think people are starting to kind of get so dependent on those people that's why they're buying 10 courses, because they have to buy them all separately from 10 different people that don't do anything with each other. So
Wow.
I think those three things you have to do, at least in today's
That was fire.
market that we're in, to be different. You have to stick with it. You can't do too much, but you have to still be unique and want to stand out and not be afraid to do that. Don't fall into the, every single day type of nonsense that we're dealing with, to say the least. So, yeah. I was in my movie mode.
Yo,
I was on like an HBO special.
That was fire. Yo. That's definitely. I agree. Like,
I've always wanted to be
you
on the
said it
radio.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna get the headphones, but it's a long distance. I thought I'd save it for someone else.
Okay.
But I was just gonna say. But that's it, guys. I really think this is dope. Like the collaboration. Like I can't stress it enough. Like the team is like the way to go. The key to success. How can we find you? What's up with this clothing line? Or is it?
So, I shut it down last year. I took the L on all the clothes. But, no, Piero actually wants to do something with it.
Of course.
And we're actually thinking about making it a name for something within digitalism. AKA podcast is what we're thinking. So, we need to start our own. We're getting behind on this stuff. But, we were thinking of just making it the podcast name and then using the clothing as...
Dope.
Yeah. Killing two birds with one stone, and we have the @ so we can post all the videos on the views on views. So I don't know. We'll see. They're just super piled up at the door right now. So.
One man's trash, same man's trash.
Yeah. Hey, there's no discrimination in the resale.
And where can we follow you at?
You can follow me at Chin. Pretty simple. CHIN.
Alright guys, stay tuned to the next podcast. We're going to be interviewing all of the members of Digitalism, and it's going to be dope. So, we'll see you later. Alright.